Thank you very much for your attention. While my topic today is poverty and urban alienation, this brings up so many other issues, and my mind starts to race. But I hope I can convey something directly to you all today. I am giving support to homeless people and those facing severe economic difficulties. Today, I would like to also update you on recent developments under the situation of COVID-19. For those who are listening from overseas, I want to share about the poor in Japan, who are actually quite numerous. Japan has a public welfare system to help maintain basic living standards, but it has various problems. For example, it should be available to everyone who needs it, but according to a study by the Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare, in reality only 22.9% who do need support actually are able to take advantage of and use it. In contrast, we see that over 80% of those in need in the UK, France, and Germany take advantage of the social welfare system of the government. I think another reason for this gap is Japanese cultural values. There is a strong stigma or taboo about receiving public welfare for Japanese. Even in the minds of those who are suffering in poverty, they feel ashamed and don't want to be viewed as someone who is lazy and doesn't try to be independent. For those living just on government retirement pensions, it may not be enough to live, but they still view it as too shameful to request further support. In this way, the stigma may be placed on them from society in general, but they often also internalize it onto themselves and use it on themselves. There are many homeless, then, who are not receiving any public welfare benefits they are owed. Yet another issue is that sometimes local officials will actually lie to such people and tell them that they are not allowed to get any benefits unless they are over the age of 65. I think many Asians see Japan as an affluent nation. However, there are a number of people who have lost their place to live here. They may not necessarily be staying by the riverside, but you may see them in internet cafes, wandering in the streets, or staying in temporary housing, only provided while they are working on a short-term job, in which they hop from location to location as they can. These kinds of people are invisible to the general public and are basically not living in the normal web of social systems. They feel so ashamed of their status that they do not reach out for help and don't want to be connected to others. This is not so much the fault of these people, but on the contrary, it is the society that ignores them. Many of these people cannot even be considered like internet cafe refugees who still have the money to use and stay in the cafe. They actually end up living on the streets, sleeping in train stations, and even in public toilet spaces. Since they do not have any permanent residence, it becomes even more difficult for local governments to get a grasp on them and their situation. This lack of a legal residence also makes it harder for them to get any kind of regular employment, and further, to maintain any ties with their family. Their isolation as such becomes intense, and in such loneliness they may commit suicide. The person who loses their life on a cold winter night in the streets or in a park is so incredibly sad. Recently, the Japanese government has relaxed immigration regulations to allow the influx of more so-called foreign talent into the country. However, this seems more like a policy designed to import cheap labor. These workers are given a beautiful name, foreign technical trainee interns, but it is more like a system of slave labor under which the immigrants work under harsh conditions. The immigrants who cannot endure such conditions and run away from their employers also end up homeless with no safety net to access. People say Japan is an affluent country, but there are people who suffer simply from a lack of money. Just last Monday, when I was making my normal rounds of the area our association patrols, I met a 79-year-old man outside in the freezing cold, when it is at his age he should be inside in some warm place. It was unbelievable. He had been living in extremely overcrowded temporary housing where the sanitation standards are really low, and this was all made worse because of the outbreak of COVID, which requires social distancing and strict sanitation. He was using almost all his welfare money just for rent in this location. He said to me, "So I asked for help, but why am I treated so inhumanely?" In Japan, there is an increasing number of single mothers as well, who may be working double shifts to pay for themselves and children. But during this COVID situation, the kinds of low paying part time jobs they often have been cut, and they have been forced to go to soup kitchens to provide for their children. Japanese themselves think this is an affluent country, but this affluence is really a house of cards that COVID has further exposed. My first encounter with the homeless was about a dozen years ago. I had already done some training in suicide prevention counseling at that point, and a priest friend that was from the training group uh, connected me to a homeless group in Shinjuku, in the western part of Tokyo, who wanted help in building a tombstone for the homeless who had already died. My temple is located in the area of Asakusa in eastern Tokyo, where you can also find many homeless, especially at nighttime. At that time, my view was very prejudiced. I would see the homeless in my area all the time, and I thought I knew them, but I couldn't understand at all why people without food or a home would want a tombstone for their deaths. Now I have come to know them much better through our group's activities and have heard many of their stories. Some remember being poor when they were young, but the local temple provided them with wonderful sweets. Others reflected on how they were forced to commit crimes just to survive. And there was another man who was even the head of a company that eventually went bankrupt. So many have had family problems and run away from those issues, or run away from financial institutions hunting them for their debts. I myself was born into a Buddhist temple family, and I thought I must have heard many sad stories from parishioners, but I had never heard these kinds of stories. There are people born just like me with a mother and father but lost them when they were young and they were neglected and bullied. I'm sure they were trying to make the best decisions at each turn, but things just didn't work out for them. Through listening to them and their stories, I really started to understand their needs. Although they conducted their lives in such a different manner, they still have values that are important to them. The sorrow of being separated from loved ones is equally hard for the wealthy and poor. So from these experiences, I developed the desire to want to help homeless people. This is a homeless encampment under a bridge in Asakusa, next to the Sumida River and across from the new Tokyo Sky Tree tourist attraction, just opened in 2012. In this slide, on the left, is the Yui no Haka tombstone, which is a number of homeless support in which a number of homeless support groups came together to pay for, and I was able to provide a space in my temple graveyard. There is also a Christian-based homeless support group in our area who we have worked with to create another tombstone for the homeless. This one you can see in the right photo in the center in the very back. For the overseas audience, Japanese almost always are cremated, and instead of one grave plot per person, their ashes are interred together with other family members in one family plot. But since such homeless people have lost their families or have been ostracized by them, we have created these plots with tombstones for them to be interred together. Regardless of being alive or already deceased, having no connection with others is so sorrowful. In this way, after these people die, they will have a connection. The homeless we meet say to us, "It may seem like having a tombstone for us is a luxury, as we are already homeless, but this is not so. We so much want to have a connection with our friends after we die. This tombstone helps us to even see our connection here in this life while we are alive, and it helps to inspire us with energy to keep on living." It was from these first steps in helping the homeless say goodbye to their friends that I got more deeply involved in this work. I'm really learning so much from these people. They are my true teachers. In this way, I got together with some other priests to form our Hitosaji One Spoonful Association, where we go out on night patrols to help the homeless in the streets in the Asakusa area and provide some simple food, medicine, and physical as well as emotional support. In this work, I have actually encountered people dying alone in the street. In our work, we very much rely on the guiding spirit of Amitabha Buddha. The Buddha's compassion can provide the strength and inspiration to get through even the hardest situations, and this is how we've been able to continue to do this work now for over a decade. We have recently gotten attention from the public for our work, but this would not have been possible without those devout followers and supporters who came together with us to chant Amitabha Buddha's name from the beginning of this project. Since the outbreak of COVID last year, these are the kinds of things that we have started to give out on our patrols, like 5 masks and a container of disinfectant spray for each person, as well as our usual services of small meals and candies. Usually, we gather at my temple as a large group beforehand to make rice balls that we then hand out on our patrols. But because of COVID, we haven't been able to gather and cook like this, so instead, we are providing pre-made lunchboxes throughout this difficult time. Soon after we started Hitosaji, there was the great Northeast Japan triple disaster, in which in one day a massive tsunami washed away towns and created a massive number of homeless people. Because of a network of active Buddhist priests we belonged to, we could also get involved in relief efforts. These slides show some of the connections that we made in Northeast Japan over this time. We have also been working with Chinese and Taiwanese Buddhists who support our work, but we are especially close with the Association of Vietnamese Buddhists living in Japan, and this is their Hall of Zen in accord with karmic connection. This is the head of the association, Bhikkhuni Thich Tam Chi, at her temple in Saitama. These are lay Vietnamese Buddhists who often come to Hitosaji to prepare food for the night patrol. They have also provided us with rice to make our rice balls for patrol. In the winter, they even provided sleeping bags we were able to give out to the homeless. In this way, we are not alone in our work, and we are passing on that message to the homeless that they are not alone, even in this difficult time of COVID. Recently, we have started also working with the Vietnamese Sangha to provide a shelter for Vietnamese immigrants who have lost their jobs during COVID and have no place to live. We are also trying to extend our work to support children who are in danger of becoming homeless, so as to avoid them being homeless as adults. In this way, I have come to understand that it is essential to confront poverty among children in Japan today. We have had to take a multi-layer approach to this issue, so we are offering support to women who have just given birth to children. We are also providing a space here in this picture for kids up to middle school age to have a place to do their school studies. Finally, we are creating a hub for locating various social connection services for both the homeless and also young people in high school. This is a children's library we helped to develop for children who have lost parents in order for them to explore their grief. It's been really amazing to see so many people from other nonprofit organizations to come and offer to support this work. And even Buddhist priests have dressed up as Santa Claus to cheer up younger kids. I would like to talk about the religious background of our work more, but it seems that my time is up. The moderator has informed that no, you can actually speak for a few more minutes. Okay. The term in Japanese for support or aid is shien, but we have done to infuse it with a Buddhist meaning is to change the second character for N with another character that reads in the same way but has a different meaning. Its meaning is deep in Buddhism as interconnectedness or karmic connection. So we pronounce it the same way but spell or write it differently. In Japan, there are so many people who have lost connection, like the homeless or people who are bullied for various reasons like being LGBTQ. But we all have connection as sentient beings. In our association, we try to recreate such connections. Importantly, it is not a one-way form of giving, of aid or support, but we also receive, and we find we are all giving aid to one another as a manifestation of interconnectedness. These karmic connections, I believe, are a realization of Amitabha Buddha's vows of compassion. I myself feel I am not a hero, but just another ordinary person living and suffering, doing the best I can to follow the Buddha's path. This is the basic orientation of Pure Land Buddhism. I have been so fortunate to make a karmic connection with these people in need, and I would like to pass it on to others, as this experience of interconnection, I feel, is very important for those lost in loneliness. Thank you so much.